Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful princess who was slim, tall, and that is why was she beautiful. She lived with her evil stepmothers and evil stepsisters who ensured that her life was made hell. How often have you heard this fairy tale? To be honest, all of us have grown up reading these tales. We also ensure that we pass it to this younger generation. But the question is, why? Why should we be reading these politically incorrect story tales to our children? Why is it that our beauty standards are always confined to these fairy tales? The thing is, from a very young and tender age, we are taught about beauty standards that are according to these fairy tales. We grow up believing in them. We always think about beauty to be confined by what is mentioned in these fairy tales. We always think about a girl or a princess to be beautiful only if she is fair, to be beautiful only if she is slim, and always be vulnerable. All of these fairy tales talk about a princess who waits for a prince to come and save her. None of these fairy tales talk about strong and independent women. Why should our kids read fairy tales that have such inclusive beauty standards? And why is it that we should let our children read such politically incorrect tales? Isn't it our duty to ensure that what they read is actually true in the real world? These children grow up believing in fairy tales. I definitely did. But what happens when reality hits? We realize that none of these fairy tales can be implemented in the real world today. None of them are actually what the real world looks like. The thing is, when we talk about teenage girls who face so many insecurities about their body, who do you think is to be blamed? It is definitely us. Why? Because in these fairy tales, we have never bothered to talk about a girl who is not thin but is beautiful, who is not fair but is beautiful. We have never ever talked about a girl being independent and strong enough to fight off her own problems. Why is it that these fairy tales always have to portray stepmothers to be evil? Stepmothers can be really sweet to their children. Not all stepsisters have to be evil. In a study that was conducted by Magic Magpie for about 2,000 parents, it was recorded that 2 out of 4 parents want to bring about a change in these fairy tales. They think that these fairy tales should be adapted with a new set of ideologies and thinking, whereas the remaining 16% said that these fairy tales should be completely banned. The thing is, right, the times are changing, our world is changing, and so when do you think is the correct time to change the fairy tales? The answer is now. It is now time for us to teach our children about strong and independent women who fight off their own problems, who do not feel insecure about their body and love it the way it is, who are strong enough to take decisions on their own and do not have to wait for a Prince Charming to come their way. It is really important for us to teach them about this at a very, very young age, the age at which these fairy tales are read. So, how do you bring about these changes? Well, for example, new characters like Moana and the one shown in Frozen are very, very refreshing to see. This is because these stories do not confine themselves to the beauty standards in these fairy tales. They are absolutely okay with their princess not being beautiful when it comes to being slim or when it comes to being fair. They are independent women who know how to fight off their problems on their own. Well, instead of waiting for many, many writers and many movies to come up, why can't we make a small change in our house as well? When we read these fairy tales to our children before bedtime, we can make a small change here and there, which could genuinely go a long way. For example, change the adjective that you use to describe the princess. Not always talk about the princess being beautiful. Also talk about her being intelligent. Don't always talk about how the only dream that she sees is getting married. Talk about her dream that she sees about building up her empire, or in fact even being stable when it comes to her career. A small change can go a long way. Thank you.